Hi, I'm Stephen Price.
Hello, I'm Cara Githens.
This is the Innkeepers, a podcast by Sanctuary Inn. At Sanctuary Inn, we believe we are called to equip, refresh, and restore God's global workers.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing guests who have much to teach us about the many facets of missionary care. Let's learn together and be encouraged to press on in the work God has given each one of us to do.
So, Cara, if you could take a minute and introduce today's guest to us.
Yes, today we have the privilege of having Jon Taylor. He is the Executive Director of Coaching Mission International. He has 24 years of experience in the local church in the pastoral ministry, and then he accepted the call to become the Director of CMI in 2018. He and his wife June live in Arizona near their 2 adult sons and their families. As we start the podcast, he's going to tell us a little bit more about his story and CMI.
Thank you.
Jon, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We are so much looking forward to this conversation. Can you just share a little bit about yourself and your journey and what has led you to be part of Coaching Mission International?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. And thank you for having me on today. Appreciate this opportunity. I'm originally from Southwest Missouri and grew up in a town, in a Christian family, but in a small town. And right next door to that town was a city where there was a Christian college in it. And so it's kind of the family rule that you had to go to the Christian college for at least 1 year. And I did that. I went back a second year because I was a part of their traveling music group. But I left after that because I decided ministry was the last thing I was going to do. So I went out to a school in California, transferred out there. They had a business degree program, business administration. So I went out there, and after getting married, graduating, all of that, my wife and I began to attend a church where we began to serve in the junior high ministry. And when those kids moved up to high school, we went up with that same group of kids. And 4 years after that, when they went into the college group, we went up with that same group of kids. Kind of during that time that I began to think, maybe I am supposed to be in ministry. So eventually found myself as an associate pastor on a church staff and did that for a couple of years. And then we moved from Southern California to Indiana, where I was on staff at a church there for 5 years, and then eventually ended up here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was on staff at a church for 17 years. So after 24 years in local church ministry, I kind of decided, well, God knows better than I do what I'm supposed to be doing, as often the case, right? Yeah. So during the time that I was on staff at the local church, I'd heard about coaching, and I'd even read a book about coaching, and kind of was just intrigued by this idea. And we had a guest speaker one weekend at church, and in one of his workshops, he talked about this idea of coaching. And so I asked him where he got his training, and he explained to me that training school was no longer serving in that way. And so I asked him what he thought I should do, and he said, I don't know. Why don't you email the guy that I got my training from and see what he would recommend? So I did that. And in doing so, the response was, well, there's this brand new organization that's just starting up called Coaching Mission International, and they're getting ready to do their very first training group. This is in 2009. He said it's primarily aimed towards missions and training missionaries, but why don't you apply and see if you can get in? And so I did. I'd only done a couple of short-term missions trips by that time, but I think they were desperate to fill the cohort, so they allowed me to join in that very first cohort. And it really changed everything for me. And I often say, I don't exaggerate, where after, my relationship with Christ and getting married, this is the thing that has really impacted me the most. Changed my leadership style. It changed my conversations. It just changed everything for me, the way that I approach people and interact with them. So that was really the beginning for me of my coaching journey. And eventually I felt like God was releasing me from the position I was in at the local church. And right about that same time, the founder and executive director of Coaching Mission International was stepping aside due to some health concerns. And so they began a search for another one. And I'd had two people tell me separately, hey, I think you're going to be the next executive director of CMI. And so I applied, and here I am. I've been full-time in this position since January of 2018.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Great.
So, understanding coaching can kind of be tricky for some people. So can you just do little definitions for us between, kind of give a definition of coaching and how people, how coaching could be part of their life?
Yeah. One definition that I really like is from author Tony Stoltzfus, and he's written a lot of books here in this Christian coaching area, and he's actually the one that did the first training that I was a part of. His definition is coaching is the practice of the disciplines of believing in people in order to empower them to change. And that just really struck me, of the practice, the discipline of believing in people, because my approach in working with people primarily had been, I'll tell you, I'll advise you, I'll give my 2 cents worth. And if you'll follow my easy 3-step plan for your life, then everything's going to go great. But this is really was a different approach for me in that idea of believing in people. And that includes believing that God can speak to them, that God has put something on their heart. And the thing that I love about the coaching approach is really it's just a conversational approach to try and draw out what God has already put in that person. So there's no telling, there's no advising. I'm simply asking questions as the coach to try and, again, draw out what I believe that God has already placed in that person. It's just really a conversational model that can be helpful to people in a lot of different ways, help them get unstuck, help them overcome challenges, help them grow, whatever the issue or the challenge is. That's the basics of the coaching approach.
How would you say it differs from counseling? I think that's fuzzy for some people.
Yeah, one of the ways that I really like to explain the differences is between counseling, mentoring, and coaching. A lot of people kind of use those same terms interchangeably, but counseling is let's look, and these are simplified, so forgive me for that, but counseling is let's look to the past and let's bring healing to the hurt. We want to see you restored to health. That's counseling. Mentoring is, here's what God has given me, this wisdom, this experience. I want to share that with you in the hopes that you can learn from that. And so I'm mentoring in that way. Coaching is, again, I want to draw out from you what I believe God has placed in you.
That's a helpful distinction. Thank you.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Coaching Mission International and what service and training does it provide?
Yeah, so the organization was begun in 2006 as a result of an invitation from YWAM South Asia to come and provide some training and some coaching to, I think it was 7 leaders at the time. And it made such a big impact on them as they began to implement some coaching skills, the coaching approach into the work they were doing, that then they said, okay, great, come back and do the same thing for all 2,000 of our field leaders.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, whoa, hang on a second. We can't do that. And so as they came back and started looking around, especially for coaches, not only Christian coaches, but that had been trained in cross-cultural approach, then they found a real lack in that area. And so the organization was started, and then the training was begun in 2009 out of that need to have some cross-culturally trained coaches who could serve specifically in the missions arena and in the missions world. And so that's how we were begun. And again, I was a part of that very first training cohort, and we've just continued to do training and provide coaching for people throughout the years. As our name implies, we do provide coaching to anybody that would like to just receive coaching, again, to get unstuck, move forward, grow, whatever the issue is. And we also provide training for those that want to become a certified coach or to use the coaching approach in their work. I'll just throw this in there too. The vast majority of people that come to us for training are looking to add this skill set to the work they're already doing. Very, very few say, I'm going to leave that and I want to become a full-time coach. Okay. It's more, I want to add this skill set, this approach to the work I'm already doing.
Yeah, another tool in the toolkit, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about someone serving cross-culturally, a global worker.
Mhm.
When would they look to someone like CMI to help them out? What kind of areas would they be asking for help?
There's so many different ways that the coaching approach can be applied and can be of great help to people. You can start with someone deciding to go on the field.
Mm,
um, from just walking through that whole process. Are we discerning God's leading correctly or not? With fundraising, there's support raising coaching. That's kind of a little niche area within the coaching world. In transition, either they're coming home for a home assignment or they're coming home for good, wherever their home country might be, can be very helpful in those transitions, sabbatical seasons, self-care areas. I'm looking to do things differently in this area of my life. A coach can really be helpful in that way. With team dynamics, just communicating with others on your team, working with others on the team, just so many areas where someone is stuck. But one of the things that I love about the coaching approach is that through the questions that we ask, we're helping people come up with options. They're creating them themselves. And a part of the approach is just to continue to ask what else. When someone has got their first couple of ideas, they're often coming to a coach because they got stuck right there. I've just come up with this one or two options and I can't think anything further. So as we help push them beyond that, then they can begin to have more options. And then, as I often say to people, when they come up with 7 or 8 or 9 options, then it's when it's like, oh, number 6, that's the one that I think is really going to be most effective.
mm,
And so it's really easy, when we're stuck in a situation to just have myopic vision and only see the little thing in front of us. And that's where a coach can come in and help bring a different perspective,
mhm,
help the client see things just a little bit differently and realize those breakthroughs, help them develop solutions, help them gain clarity. That's what a lot of people say when we talk about what the big picture thing is they want to talk about is I just need clarity. I need to process this. I need, to have some better idea of how I'm going to move forward with this
mhm,
idea.
mhm. Well, Sanctuary Inn, of course, is a place where missionaries can come and step aside and get some rest and refreshment. But the
Mhm.
idea of having a coach walking part of that, helping you with that sabbatical or transitional time, tell me how that could actually maximize or multiply their time at a place like Sanctuary Inn or another organization, another place where they might have a time to step aside.
Yeah, again, it can really be helpful just to have someone else asking you questions that can kind of open you up to, oh, I see now that this is what was going on, or this is how I need to process this. Another kind of sub genre of coaching is debriefing coaching.
Okay.
And so, depending on what situations they were dealing with as they're coming off the field for the time at Sanctuary Inn, it can be just we need to process again, or we need to gain clarity on what happened, or we need to debrief. Whatever the situation is, this approach can just be really helpful in them unpacking, them processing, them gaining clarity, and then from all of that, saying, and here's how I need to move forward to deal with this, to move beyond it, whatever the issue is or the challenge is.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, as you're describing this and just thinking back on some of my training, and I really feel like coaching is helping people take next steps. It's a lot of
Mhm.
people being like you're keep referring to that stuck feeling. So in essence, if someone feels stuck in some area of their life, that's probably a sign that they could use a coach.
Exactly. Physically, relationally, ministry, whatever it is. And the beautiful thing about the coaching approach as well is I don't have to be the expert in whatever it is that you are doing
Yeah.
or the situation. I only need to be the expert in the coaching process to be
Mhm.
able to help you draw out from that. I remember at a workshop I was presenting a couple of years ago, I just did a little 10-minute short demo and I brought someone up to say, okay, what's a challenge that you're facing or decision that you need to make? And they said, we're trying to decide between this approach or this approach. And I have no clue about this work that they're doing overseas, and I need to. So just asked a few questions, and by the end of that 10 minutes, they said, all right, I have a very clear idea now of which decision we need to make and the first three steps that we need to take as a result of that decision.
Wow.
And they sat down and they were very pleased with that. And again, I don't have any expertise in their area at all, but just by simply asking the right questions, it was unlocking for them the solutions that, again, I believe they have within them. I just want to help draw those out.
Yeah.
And I think in the whole, even support raising is such a challenge for most missionaries. And to think that, someone could get discouraged to the point where they could drop out. Whereas if they had someone to help walk them through the situation and, come to them, say, how are things going, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the appropriate questions are. Would think that that would help kind of just keep people moving in the right direction.
Exactly. It's empowering to the person that's receiving the coaching because, again, you're drawing out your I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody at the end of a conversation say, wow, thank you so much. That was a great idea that you had. And I said, whoa, 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 that wasn't my idea. That was your idea, remember? And they,
Mm.
oh, yeah, that was my idea.
Yeah.
And again, that's the power of this approach is just drawing out from them. And, one of the bigger things that I find as well that's so helpful to people is this person, the coach, is just really listening. We've developed the skill of listening, and it really is a skill,
Yeah.
knowing what to listen for and to ask questions based on that. And I remember in one of our training times, we were just having a practice session of a listening exercise, and we were debriefing that afterwards. And one of the trainees who'd been on the field for 20 plus years, we were just debriefing, and she said, I've never had anyone listen to me like this,
Mhm.
with tears starting to stream down her face.
Mhm.
And that was just from a practice exercise. And it just really highlights that value of listening well to someone and listening without offering solutions or unsolicited advice or whatever it might be, but just simply listening
Yeah.
and being with them, being present with them. So that's a huge, huge part of this approach is just letting them have that presence of someone listening.
That listening is definitely a gift that we can give people.
Yes.
So, if someone is interested in becoming a coach and perhaps going through the training you guys provide, what does that look like?
Yeah, the place that everyone starts in any coach training program is with a foundational course. And you really got to get the basics, the foundation of the coaching skills down. And so that's what we actually call our first course is called Foundations for Coaching Excellence.
Mhm.
And it is a year-long course that's broken up into three phases, but the primary piece of it is a week-long intensive where it's either held online or in person. And from the beginning of the week, when we begin to introduce the skills to the end of the week, people will move from just beginning learning them to have two different 40-minute conversations with one of their other peers in the cohort. And by the end of that week saying, okay, I can do this. I can have a coaching conversation. And then there's another phase where they have to provide 50 hours of coaching to other people. They have a mentor coach who walks alongside them to see how it's going and just to make sure that they're good. There are a lot of programs out there that are 3 or 5 days. And at the end of that, they'll hand you a piece of paper and say, okay, congratulations, you're a coach. Off you go next. And we don't want that to happen. We believe this is way too important. And especially for the audience that we serve, the missions community, that we want to make sure that people really get these skills down well and that they really are serving using this approach in a very, very strong way.
Mhm.
So, what would you say is kind of the distinctive that allows you guys be equipped to deal with people cross-culturally?
First of all, most of our trainers are experienced cross-cultural workers, and they have served in many different places around the world, many different contexts, et cetera. But one of our advanced courses that someone can take is actually called Coaching with Cultural Intelligence.
Okay.
And that course is, okay, now once I've got the basics of coaching down now, how do I take into account the cultural differences that I will encounter when I'm coaching someone with different cultural values? One example might be if I'm from an autonomous culture like the United States, and the person I'm coaching is from a community-based culture, which, as we know, is most of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Um, if I ask them, for example, what is your goal? What is your dream? If I ask them an individualized question like that, they're going to say, well, hang on, let me go ask my community. What is my dream? What is my goal? Rather than that individual. So how do I coach that kind of a person? Another one might be status inequality. Someone that's only used to, you're the expert, you're the boss, you tell me what to do. How do I coach someone that is from that kind of cultural background so that we have an equal footing rather than me? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to ask you questions and help you answer. So that's the whole focus of that one course, is how to coach people that are from different cultural perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah, that I'm sure it makes a huge difference in how you approach the conversation.
Yeah, and even one of our other courses that we typically offer whenever we're doing an on-site week-long intensive, like I was describing, then if we can, the next week we want to do a 3-day other course that we call Coaching with Personality Types. And we use the Myers-Briggs type indicator because that's the most widely translated material around the world. So how do different personality types? If I'm coaching someone who's, let's say, on the Myers-Briggs, the last continuum is perceiving versus judging, and not good words, but to use perceiver is I want to keep all of my options open. I want to, don't box me in. Don't try and force me to do something over here. Whereas a J is, what's the expectation? What's the timeline? What are we looking at here? So if I'm a J trying to coach a P and come on, let's make an action step, and you're going, hey, don't try and box me in here.
Mhm.
How do I coach that kind of person with a different personality type? It's neither right or wrong. It's different. So I need to know how to coach.
Yeah, it takes wisdom and discernment and some education on these things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If someone's thinking about this whole idea of coaching, is there, but they might say, "Oh, I don't have enough education or the right education." That's really not, their previous education doesn't really come into play, does it?
Not at all. Not at all. Anybody from any background. And in fact, some of the people that we have trained in different countries around the world, I'm thinking of one guy in particular in South Asia. He began then to develop his own coaching course. It's different from ours in that it's a more of a condensed version and just to give them some basic skills, but has trained other hundreds of others, of typical village workers just to use this approach. Another fun story from South Asia is this organization had been doing training, church planting training, and they would offer up training and say, go do that. And the next month or so, then they would gather these people together. Here's some more training, go do that. And after several of their people came through our training program, they decided to switch their approach to, they would say, here's some training. What are ways that you could use this in your context, in your situation? What would it look like to apply this training? And then out of that, develop some action steps. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this in this way, and I'm going to take these action steps. And so then after that, when we meet again next month, before I give you any more training, I'm going to ask you what worked, what didn't work, what went well, what would you do differently next time? Let's learn from that. And then, okay, now here's some more training. And then let's go through the whole thing again. And these guys were excited to tell me, they said there was one guy in particular that had been coming to our training for 3 years and had not planted any house churches. And we switched to this approach. And in the next 2 years, that same guy planted 400 house churches
Mike.
because it was his ideas. I know what I would do in my context rather than just, again, receiving.
Oh,
Well, I don't know what to do with this. I'll put it, oh, here's some more training. Great. Thank you.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a huge impact.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Another,
remember when I did some coach training, I remember learning how that essentially you're taking the approach that people are experts in their own lives, which
yes.
is clearly true, especially in cross-cultural contexts. Someone in their own culture can translate the material into their own culture way better than we can coming from the outside. So
Exactly.
the power of that model allows a lot better for continuing.
Again, remember the definition that I said early on. It's the discipline of believing in people.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And when I see them in the way they're God's creation, He's gifted them, He's given them the ability to figure things out. When I truly believe that and I begin to ask questions to draw those things out, then they rise to the occasion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that anecdote about the young man who took was polite enough to listen, but then once it got to where he could really use it, God just really gave him that ability just to move forward. What are some other instances in the missions world where you see that coaching is having a positive impact?
In many ways, again, another story, a guy that was a church planter working in Latin America, Caribbean area, he began to use this approach and with three guys in his organization. And over the next year, they planted 90 house churches once he switched to this new approach. There was an organization working in Eastern Europe, and they decided, excuse me, that they wanted every one of their leaders to be trained to use these skills, and we even trained them in how to offer their training program within their own organization, which then they took and then they trained every one of their national workers as well as, not just the leaders in the organization, but also all of the field workers. And they said that they saw a dramatic rise in the impact and effectiveness of their ministry, again, after using the coaching approach. We've got many stories like that. A lot of the stories also center on individuals. And that one quote that we have is, after 10 years of being in missions, I was considering hanging up my hat and giving up on this. But after going through the training and using this approach, then in my ministry, it really made all the difference. And that person was still on the field for, a decade or so after they had come through the training.
Mhm. That's
And
a
so
good.
it really is effective in that way also of, um, as I said, it's that additional skill set that people can add to the work that they've already been doing, but it really then frees them up from I've got to be the one that's got to make this happen to how can I help the nationals I'm working with, whoever it is, help them figure it out, and so that they can accomplish this.
I'm kind of thinking about a team leader who may feel kind of stuck with his team and he
Mhm.
knows there's a lot of potential, but he doesn't feel like they're going anywhere. So how would the team leader benefit from taking the training and then implementing it in his team?
We've seen that be very effective as well. One way that I can personally use or answer that question is when I was still on the church staff and I began to learn these skills and I changed my approach with the staff. Now, there were times when, you've got to say to someone, here's what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then you can put on the coaching hat and say, what do you think would be the best way to get this accomplished? What are options of ways to do this? What are options of ways to do that? What do you think will be most effective? What action steps are you going to come up with from these options that we've looked at? And it really was effective in changing the way that I interacted with that person, but also how it empowered them. I used that word earlier as well, how they were empowered then to, oh, okay, I'm not just following orders that someone is giving me and I don't have any idea of what to do, but they're helping me figure out what to do and how to do this. So for a team leader, I think the idea is that using this approach of asking questions can just be so powerful because one of the big discoveries that come out of it is where's the area of resistance or where's the area that maybe is someone is hesitant. And then just asking simple questions about what's behind that. What do you think will happen if you do this? What do you think will happen if you do that? Why are you hesitant to do that? What does that say about your belief about this or that? I mean, there's just all different kinds of ways that you can approach that, but it can be very, very helpful for a team leader to use this approach, this skill set with their team members.
Yeah, I can see how it would probably bring down barriers if the conversation weren't just one-sided from a leader to a someone that they're overseeing in any capacity. That
Yeah,
a conversation can change the tone. Yeah.
Exactly. I want you to figure it out. I want to help you figure it out rather than just again tell you go do this, go do that. I was working with a group of um, Kenyan nationals a couple of years ago. We did a 3-day workshop with them, and it was just fun to see, the light bulbs go on of I have the same people come and ask me the same question, all the time. And so you mean if I ask them what do they think and how would they address it and what do they want to do rather than me just giving them an answer and sending them away and they come back and ask me the same thing again next week or tomorrow? It was just fun to watch them go, wow, this is great. I don't want them to keep answering the same question over and over again. And so then I went back the following year, last year, as a follow up. And man, just heard some great stories of, wow, this is the difference that it has made. I even had one guy say, in my department within this ministry, in my department, we cut our budget by 50% by using the coaching approach, just by asking questions. Why are we using this vendor? Is there a different vendor? Is there a different way to use these materials? Like all of those kind of things. We cut our budget by 50%. That's great. That's the first time I've ever heard that one, but that works.
Can you perhaps unpack a little bit? How can coaching be used in marriages or family conflict situations?
Yeah, the skills of again listening well, asking good questions, those are the two primary skills of the coaching approach, can be very helpful in any relationship, but even in marriages, because I used to consider myself a really good listener. I don't think my wife would have said that before I came into this training, but that really changed for us too, because then one of the first things that we do in a coaching conversation is ask the question, what is it that you want to walk away with from this conversation? What are you after? What's the goal? And so even in my own marriage, just simply asking my wife that if something has come up and I can see, oh, we're not seeing eye to eye here, I can just simply ask her, what do you would you like from this conversation? Or what is the goal that you have in your mind? And let's talk about that rather than I see it this way, you see it this way. There's even a book written by a couple that's called Marriage Coaching, and it is really teaching people how to, again, listen better, ask better questions to really get to what's the heart of the issue that we're struggling with here.
So does CMI offer marriage coaching for couples who need it?
We have people on staff, yes, that can coach marriages, yes.
I know it's often a reality on the field that the pressure cooker of all the
Mhm.
additional stresses really can put a strain on marriages. And I'm guessing some people are like, well, our marriage isn't that bad. I don't really need counseling, but maybe they'd be willing to pursue some coaching and get some better communication skills and just maybe feel not so isolated in how they're
Yeah.
handling their marriage. So,
I really appreciate you saying that, Cara, because one of the things that I have found just even in recent years is that, a lot of organizations have member care departments, and at least historically, they've been focused on there's a crisis situation, and we want to come alongside and help deal with that, which is great. When I began to use the words proactive before member care, people started really taking an interest in, oh, yeah, if we could get ahead of some of these issues, some of these challenges before it becomes a crisis, that would be really, really helpful. And so to answer the question earlier, yeah, how is this helpful in that way? Team dynamics, marriage relationship, whatever it is, if people can learn that they can safely say, we've got a bit of a problem here and we'd like to get some help. And if that can be coaching, then I think that can be extremely beneficial to people.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so often we're guilty of just looking for solutions when we're in the middle of a problem.
Mhm.
And just when you just said getting out ahead of the problem, helping people look down the road and ask the right questions and anticipate what might be ahead, I would to that just sounds like such wise counsel.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times also in a coaching conversation, someone has come in and said, here's what I want to focus on today. Here's what I want to talk about. And about 15 or 20 minutes in, they say, oh, I know I said that thing, but actually, this is the real issue that needs to be dealt with right now. And we just Great. Let's shift over to that and let's talk about that instead. Because often people will come to us with the surface type of issue or more of a symptom. And the coaching approach really helps get down to what's the root of the issue, what's going on here.
Mhm.
And then what I really appreciate about coaching is that they own the decision and the next steps far more than I often see in counseling. Um, and I say that as a counselor myself. I've seen the difference between coaching and counseling, and that it really does empower people to make decisions for themselves and then hold themselves accountable to a degree. Hey, I said that I would do this, so then
Yeah.
I need to follow through on this. So there's a lot more ownership. And I think there's huge value in that.
Oh, very much so. It keeps the responsibility with the person who has the vested interest in the situation again. And when I would offer my three-step plan, nobody would ever do it because they were my ideas. When I began to this approach, oh, we could this, we could this, we could this. Okay, of those three, which are you going to do? I think number two is going to be the most helpful thing. And then what I would ask them about that, either they did it and it worked, or they did it and it didn't work. But any of those kind of things we can evaluate and we can debrief on. If they didn't do it, okay, did you decide it wasn't that important, or you still want to do it? What's your motivation for getting this thing done, whatever it is? And that's a huge part of any challenge or any issue that anyone's dealing with is where's the motivation coming from? If all any of us needed to change was more information, we would all be changed people. It's not more information. It's what's the motivation behind this thing that's making you want to change. And that's a huge part of a coaching conversation. It's why are you motivated? Why is this important to you?
And I think many times when people are stuck, they recognize things need to change, but they don't
Mhm.
know what to do. And they desire for change. Um, I think if any of us are honest, growth means change, but change is uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And we're often so stuck that we don't know what that looks like. So the coaching conversation draws that out. I think it's so helpful.
Yes, very much so. I often joke with a saying that I heard, change is good. You go first.
You go,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But in a sense, this person has prescribed their own path of change, is what I'm
Exactly.
hearing. They've created the path. So it's not like they're like, oh, this counselor or this guy told me to go do this. Whereas they said, the decision we made was that if I should do this, the decision I made was I should do this, so it's going to benefit me. Then, the responsibility wholly lies with them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And it wasn't my action step that I gave you as the coach, it was yours. Um, if you didn't do it, is it still important to you? Do you still want to do that? If not, okay, it's no big deal to me. It's not my action step, it's your action step.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, say someone wants to either do the training or get coaching for themselves. How do they go about accessing that from CMI?
Yeah, our website is coachingmission.com. We do have a course coming up. I don't know when this episode will air, but it'll begin in July. And the week-long intensive will be here in the US. It will be in Missouri in September. And so there's still plenty of time for people to get registered for this course. We've got one ongoing right now in Asia. And we'll offer another one again in person with a week-long intensive in April in Chiang Mai, Thailand next year. We'll also offer this fully online next year. Phases 1 and 3, there are 4 online classes. So that's all done online. And again, that week-long intensive we either do in person or online. And so that's a great place to start. If someone would love to just learn more about it, or maybe say, I'm not ready to become a full coach, but I'd like to learn some of these skills and begin to implement them, we can come to people and we can offer a 3-day workshop just to, again, let them practice some of these skills, introduce them, and let them begin to implement them. What does this look like in your setting and in your context? We also do a 1-day online workshop, which again, just very basically introduces the skills, but we have another one of those scheduled for October. And all of this information, again, is on our website. And then every other month or so, I do just an introductory 1-hour webinar of how coaching benefits global workers. And we walk through some of this, what is coaching, what it is not, how it works, what the basic process is, and then here's how it benefits those who are working in global cross-cultural situations.
And so how, if someone wants it coaching for themselves, maybe for them,
Yeah.
a leader who's stuck, or maybe a marriage that's in trouble, but they're like, I think coaching will help. So
Yeah.
how,
We also offer on our website, there's one of the tabs that's called Get a Coach, and there are different coaching packages that are available there. We also do something that's called life purpose coaching, which is hugely helpful for people in 40s, 50s, and 60s that I've been doing this work, I've been doing this ministry, but what's God's bigger plan for me? What's his bigger picture, vision, and purpose for my life? And it can be very, very helpful to people to not have their identity locked in on here's the role that I've been in, here's the ministry I've been doing, but what does God have for me? Again, like from a 30,000-foot level. But yeah, any of those coaching packages are available there, and people can just pick one and sign up. They're just varying lengths is mainly the difference between starting at 6 sessions all the way up to 12 sessions for the life purpose package. We also do coaching for leaders. Again, the great thing is whatever the topic is, whatever the issue is, we can use the coaching skills and coaching approach to it and be helpful to people.
good to know. So what other tools might you recommend? Maybe someone just wants to read a book about this, or
Yeah.
What resources would you recommend?
The book that I first read that got me interested in coaching is called Christian Coaching, and that's by Gary Collins. Another one is called Leadership Coaching. That's kind of our textbook for our course, and that is by Tony Stoltzfus, Stoltzfus. And both of those are available through Amazon, and just really helpful kind of introductions to what coaching is and how the process, the coaching conversation works. And even in Tony's book, Leadership Coaching, there are some introductory type exercises that someone can just do on their own, just to say, for instance, okay, this is a leading question. How can you turn it, or a closed question? How can you turn this into an open question? An open question is far more effective, and someone can answer it in however they want to rather than a closed question. So just some really basic and introductory ideas like that, but just a really great picture of here's what coaching is. And both of those very much from the Christian perspective.
Great. Thank you. We are hoping that lots of other people will find you guys through our podcast and find these resources and trainings, and perhaps have some transformation happen in their own lives.
That would be awesome. Again, I'm a firm believer. That's obviously why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right. I've seen the transformational impact in my own life, and I've also seen it in so many clients now that I've worked with, and a firm believer in this approach, and just love that we get to do this and impact missions leaders around the world.
Thank you, Jon.
Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Steve, what did you hear? What was the big takeaway for you?
Well, it was a really interesting conversation. Found out more about coaching. You know, I've known the word, and I've known that you have training in that and so on, but just was so impressed with all the different places they're working and the efforts that they're making to make coaching work in all kinds of cultures and all kinds of countries. But yeah, just the idea of helping people get unstuck, moving forward, and helping them see that sometimes it's a pretty simple step. But yeah, just to walk with them in situations where they need to work something out.
Yeah, I really appreciate that CMI is really doing good contextual work and really being relevant to the missionary in their life. And I really hope that many of you out there, if you are needing coaching in your leadership or in your marriage, or maybe you want to get some training, that you would just look up CMI coachingmission.com, and really find some resources to get help, because it really can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I feel like he shared a lot of great resources there at the end. So take a minute and look those up.
Yeah, all those resources should be in our show notes. And thank you so much for joining us. And be sure to subscribe or share with a friend. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for the Innkeepers podcast. Our mission at Sanctuary Inn is to equip, refresh, and restore God's global workers. We hope today's podcast was an encouragement to you, or maybe the podcast you heard today, you've been prompted to pass this along to someone you know that could benefit from today's conversation. Creating a podcast is a team effort. Cara and I prepare and do the interviews, and we're grateful for the time that our guests give us out of their busy lives to help us learn more about missionary care.
We want to thank Tim Downing for the music he wrote and performed for the Innkeepers podcast. Tim is a very talented musician, and you can find out more about Tim at downingkeys.com. Our podcast is edited by Javier Bolanos, and our website and show notes are prepared by Micah Githens, my amazing husband. You can visit the Sanctuary Inn website to see more of Micah's great work at sanctuaryinn.org.
Thank you for joining us on our journey to learn more about missionary care.